What is up, Cabbage Crew? It is Matt and John here talking about Dragon Prince Season 1, Episode 6, Through the Ice. We both reacted to it this morning. I'm going to take a small break due to sports. Sports. So let's just jump right into it. Well, I'll ask you your first impressions of the episode before we jump into it scene by scene.
Good.
Good. Moving on. No.
No. I mean, I'll finish. It was well done. There was some questionable plot, not like questionable, like from like me. Why did they put this here per se? But just like questionable plot conveniences that I noticed in this episode with and again we'll get into it, but the whole like, oh, Rayla, we don't trust you now, we talked about that a little bit. And so but I thought it was well done. I'll say as they're on their journey, I'm more interested in the kingdom and what's going on there right now than the actual journey. I don't know about you. I appreciate Rayla and Callum's character development and all that. But like in terms of Viren and what he wants to do, I'm very interested in that dark side of the story back to the kingdom. So that leave that there as you will. I can't hear you. I cannot hear you.
Sorry, I was muted because someone was outside with a loud car. I do feel like this episode was focused a little bit more on Viren and the kingdom itself, and less of the trio of kids. Because really, the trio of the kids, the plot didn't really further too much with them, besides maybe what might happen with the egg. But it was really just. I hate to say filler because I don't think it was filler, but it didn't seem like nothing really progressed with them. It was more about what was going on with the kingdom. It felt like they were a secondary plot compared to the kingdom.
I agree. I agree mostly, but I do think there was a point, or not. There were points made with the with the trio gang. Where some important information did come out that we needed to know, and we will be talking about that. We will be talking about it in this reaction. But I would say if you had like just in terms of you can gauge what I'm thinking, Kingdom is like 62%, and then the trio is like 38%. In terms of like importance and interest, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, I can get that.
It's like we agree, just like
yeah. Especially this episode. It might not necessarily the entire, for me, not the entire show, but this episode, I was more intrigued what was happening with the kingdom because of really the plot, and it's kind of thickening when it comes to Viren and his children, and we talked about a little bit earlier the political side of the actual world and how the human race. How their politics work and how each kingdom, there's multiple kingdoms. So like, it seems like at least. So, so I think that was a little bit more, this episode made that a little bit more intriguing. So, we already talked a little bit about the distrust between, the two boys and Rayla. How they feel like she's not telling them everything.
Well, it's more it's more of a Callum and Rayla thing than Ezra.
Yeah, more of Callum. And it kind of came out of nowhere. It really did. I wish there was something in the last episode, and maybe there was, and we missed it.
I'll say that I think I agree with you. Like they should have built it up a little bit more, but. I'm reflecting on the previous episodes, and I remember some of the things where like she kept hidden to herself, like, "Oh, why do you hate the boat in this water?" And then she says some things that don't make sense to to Callum, and so like he's like, okay, like she's been dodging some questions and some information that when asked she just doesn't answer. She doesn't tell the whole truth, and
Yeah.
so like it's been like, again, it's all about the sprinkles, like
Mm-hmm.
on your ice cream, it's just those sprinkles, and so and so like it's just they're giving you that little bit of information for later, and I think that's why it built up here. Do I agree with it in the way that they just randomly did it in this episode? No. I think they could have done a little bit more of a better job. Like there should have been another instance to where maybe
Mm-hmm.
Callum blows up and be like, okay, you've been so weird, Rayla, like what's going on, like something like that, where instead of this episode where it's just like they're just direct accusations.
Yeah.
Like I mean, that was out.
To me, it came out of no. I almost would have rather them like maybe built on that Q&A thing where like maybe he
Yes.
asked her another question and she didn't want to answer it, and then at the end of the last episode he was like, hey, by the way, like you never did answer,
Right.
What was your mission to come here, or like something like, hey, like, hey, like, and then she doesn't answer it and they keep walking, and then he's like, and that
Right.
and that like ends their part of last episode, and then it goes into this episode him being like, I don't know if I trust this girl.
Yeah.
Instead of just her literally saving their lives, and specifically Bates' life, and then they go to sleep, and then the next day he's like, I don't know if I trust her. So that's I would say that I agree with that.
We mostly agree. We do. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a fight scene. Corvus.
Well, we
What?
talked about it. We don't talk about it.
What?
The first time we see her hand turns purple.
Yes.
In the very beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning. Okay, very beginning of the episode, her hand. Even if I feel like even if they saw that and they were like, "Hey, what's this about?" and she doesn't want to tell them, and then there's mistrust. But yes, we see her hand turn purple. We'll talk about that later because she explains it later.
Of course. Yep.
But yes, that was interesting. Yeah, so the fight scene between Corvus, which we talked about last episode, 2 episodes ago, Corvus is sent to capture or to take her down and bring back the boys to the kingdom.
Right.
So she has a quick little fight with them, and I guess he just never. It's showing that he's following them, and so yeah. I mean, I'm fine with that. It does give me the Combustion Man vibes, where it's like he pops in. I wonder if his character is going to have more of a. It most likely will, but more of a point to it besides just being this man that's chasing them down. By the way, try to put the put your thing down a little bit. Yeah, there you go. There you go, buddy. I'm just because, no, but just because of shorts. That's all. Try to make your head centered, by the way.
Okay. Also edit that out.
I will. I mean, whatever. But I'm just saying, like, overall, like, your head's not centered. It's like right here. Try to make it more centered. That's all.
No, I know, but I did the.
I'll try. But anyway, yeah. So yeah. I feel like that. We'll see where that comes from. The fight scene was pretty cool. I thought the fight scene was pretty cool.
Yeah. I'll admit I did not think that was Corvus. I thought he looked different. I did not recognize him.
Oh no, I recognized him. I mean, I was definitely Corvus.
I didn't know. I didn't know until later.
Yeah. So I guess we can go back to Kingdom, unless you want to talk about that fight scene a little bit more. There's nothing to be honest.
No, I mean it was a good fight. No, it was a good fight scene. Well done. Very, very pretty action packed. Raylo showing off some moves and Corvus using his chain gang of chains.
Yeah.
It was good action for what it was. I appreciated it.
I will say I wished it was not. I don't know what it was. I don't know. Something about it made me not feel like too much about it. I don't know. I don't know if it's just because I'm not in love with this character yet. I don't know if it's because I just felt like I didn't really care as much when he showed up. I wish maybe they built that up a little bit differently.
Right.
But overall, that fight scene was fine. It was fine. So again, we go back to the kingdom,
Yep.
and so I know she's looking at the mirror. Claudia's looking at the mirror. Am I missing something else? There was a seesaw scene that I know there was a little bit of talking, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't like that scene that much.
What's this?
No, it was when they were talking about seesaws. I didn't like the scene that much.
But that wasn't the main point of the conversation.
It was. I know it wasn't. I just wrote down seesaws.
Why did you write down seesaws in your notes?
Because that's what he's. Well, it did. I'm just saying. So you know what I'm talking about. The seesaw. Because they kept referring him to a seesaw. You have two options, and he's like, we can either have the kids run the kingdom,
Yeah,
and or us run the kingdom.
I just hated the way you wrote it down.
Because I wrote down the seesaw thing because they kept referring to a seesaw.
They only mentioned it once.
Twice, but anyway.
Okay, Soren mentioned it once, and then Viren mentioned it once.
Well, I wrote it down because I didn't like that. I didn't like how
it fell flat because it fell flat.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I said the seesaw.
No, but the conversation itself was important.
It was. It was.
Do you want me to go on with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, so yeah, that conversation, Soren's like, he's like doing some workout on the steps, and he finally reaches the top, and he's like, woohoo, like, I did this, and Viren's up there like, oh, my son, no. And so Viren tells Soren, like, hey, this is more Viren saying more mischievous and behind the scenes actions of, hey, I want you to go back and say that the prince has died, and therefore, I can take the throne, even though I don't want it, but I'll take it. Mm-hmm. And just remember, Soren, you're next in line.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just trying to convince him, and it's a dirty trick psychologically. I mean, it's we all know where Viren's going with this. And so there's that, and then
I will say I think the scene was fine. It's just when he was explaining, like, okay, we have two ways of going about this, and he brought up a seesaw. It can go either up or down, and I thought I literally wrote down the seesaw because I put it down in parentheses, the seesaw scene, to remember that quick little, because it wasn't a long scene, but it was an important scene, but I think that fell flat, very flat.
The joke fell flat. Yes.
Yeah. Finish the seesaw scene.
But Viren goes off to the sky, not like literally, but he goes like in directions of the sky and the view, and he just goes like, this upcoming war is a determination of the fate of humanity, and if we make those right decisions, humans may finally need to return to Zadia,
right,
and take back the magical lands. It's all this convincing that he's trying to do with Soren, and he makes the argument that, like, if a child is the king, he won't make the wrong decisions, but he'll make the weak decisions.
Right.
And so you need to have an older leader, wiser, to make those type of like, I don't want to say decisions again, but decisions. And
comment below if there's another word for decisions.
Agreements or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not a
no, I mean, it makes sense. Like, hey, we're gonna have children running this kingdom.
Yep.
Probably not the best idea at time of war. But you can just tell. I mean, like, and to be honest, if we were looking at it from the outside, I almost feel like if we weren't watching these scenes and we were someone in the kingdom, if he just made that argument, like, look, it's time of war, the children are still alive, right? And we're gonna find them. We're gonna have a group of people to go try to find them, but it's time of war. We can't sit around and do nothing. I'm the Lord. I'm the second in command while the children are not here. I have to take over the kingdom. And when the king and when this is done, this small little like time of war is over and the children are back safe, then we can do a proper coronation to bring them in and make them the kings.
Right.
I almost feel like that was just explained. Then he probably would have gotten away with it, and then eventually been like, "We're gonna kill the kids." Like, like you know what I mean? Like,
we're laughing, kill the kid.
No, but if I feel like if he just explained that and like did it differently, because he was so bad at being like to like the rest of the like kingdom that he was just like, burn the body, I'm taking over now. They were like, what?
Right.
So but yeah. And then
just to finish off that
yeah.
scene, he goes on to say like, Soren asks like, what if I do find them alive, or what if we do find them alive? Because it's him and Claudia about to go on this adventure, this like find the rescue mission.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what do we find them alive? And he's like, you know what to do if you find them alive. You know what to do when you find them alive.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that wasn't that a little bit later as well?
No, both, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was a little bit later because and we're jump around a little bit here, but we can just talk about it now because it all kind of meshes together. So yeah, he basically tells Soren, if you find the kids, kill them.
Yep.
That's going to be your secret mission. And then he talks to Claudia, and we'll go back a little bit, but he talks to Claudia as well, and essentially tells her like, hey, you have a secret mission. Bring back the egg. Don't tell anybody. Bring back the egg. So it's almost kind of, and then again, the kids kind of talk about it too, but it's almost like going to two different people and saying you have a secret mission, not wanting them to share their secret mission because he's kind of the puppet master of the entire mission itself, not allowing them to know what's happening. So, which I like that scene.
Yeah, I mean,
I like that strategy, I should say.
Yeah, and he's like, and it's like, and she, Claudia says like, oh, but like, if I had to choose between Soren and the egg, I have to, what do I do, right? Like, I choose Soren, right? And then she walks away, the egg.
Yeah. I actually like that. I thought that was me and you. So me and you were watching it together, and we both laughed when he walked out, and we're like, the egg, like thinking that like he's internally saying it, and then he actually said it out loud, and we're like, oh. So that was I thought that was kind of powerful, to be honest. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. And I will say, like, we can just talk about it real quick about the we can talk about it real quick the some of the more of the world building aspects of that scene where like there's this magical mirror and it's supposed to do things, and I don't know what it's supposed to reveal. It's like, oh, mirror on the wall, I guess. Like, I don't know if that's the concept of what they were going with that, with like, oh, mirror on the wall, like, please show us what's happening, or I don't know.
They mentioned it for a second. I really didn't write it down because they gave us such a small tease that I figured we'd learn more later. But it seems like it's something like that, like seeing a outcome of something, or they like hinted to it, and I just it's like, okay, they're giving us small hints because we've seen that mirror before. So we'll find out, and I'm sure it's really interesting. And she was in the middle of casting something, and her eyes turned black, which was really cool. So yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to the world building / magic of her powers, and we've heard from the commenters below, a couple of you guys have mentioned that Claudia is an awesome character. So I'm sure like her magic is and her character is going to expand moving forward, as she's kind of been I would probably say one of the least main characters, like out of the bigger characters. She's been, I guess you could say, the named characters. She's been not really the focus point. And Maya had a kind of her character started getting a little bit more important. last couple episodes, and obviously like the trio of kids, and the king and the lord, and all, and like her character has been kind of like there, and even Soren, his character is not like those two characters in episode 1. We thought they were going to be bigger, and they haven't been the last few episodes. So we'll see moving forward. Hopefully their characters get a little bit bigger. So yeah, back to the kids.
I think we found out in the last episode, and we forgot to mention it. The type of spell, like spells that mages use, like Claudia and now Callum, it's draconic. That okay? Did you did you remember that? Did you find that out?
Mm-mm.
They mention it, and I believe it was the last episode, where like it was a conversation between like Rayla and Callum saying like, oh yeah, that's a draconic language that I know how to use or something. When Callum was using the lightning. She said it was like a draconic.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember. Yep.
So I remember. So I think that's what mages use. They use a draconic language for the spells. It's not Latin like we thought or something. It's
right. It's not Elven.
No, it's just it's a draconic language. So
interesting. Okay.
I want to know that.
Yeah. No. And then yeah. So going back to the kids, pre-avalanche, they mentioned that the Bait ate all the is it the juice that she's having, the
moon shadow juice, or the moon?
Yeah, it's berry juice. And Bait's the one that ate it all, and he turns an interesting color. I thought that was actually pretty funny. They were like, oh, it wasn't him. Oh, he just turns colors. It's all, and then he burps, and he's like, yep, it was him. And then his burp ends up starting an avalanche, which I also thought was kind of funny. They're like, we have to be really quiet, and you can see the cracks happening, and then the burp ends up making the avalanche happen. Callum tries to get out of it by using a little bit of magic, which kind of prevents them to get really seriously hurt, but also causes them to get hit enough to lose the egg, which is in the middle of like basically an ice lake. Ezran goes to retrieve it and breaks through the ice. But before breaking through the ice, or I guess I don't know if it was right before or right after, but there's a conversation between Ezran and Callum and Rayla, with her essentially letting them know what, and you guys below have been commenting about the wristband, because we've been kind of, and we still aren't probably 100% knowledgeable about the wristbands, but the wristband is essentially a I wouldn't say curse. What's a good word for it?
It's a ritual, is what they said.
It's a ritual.
It's a an elvish ritual that it's like in Harry Potter, the the unbreakable vow.
Yes, 100%. Yes. So I guess with that, they have to kill Ezran to be able to release it. It doesn't give them any power or anything, right? It's just a ritual that they had to do in the mission because of reasons.
Yep. It was, that doesn't. And essentially, if she doesn't, then she loses her hand over time.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Cool.
That's why it's going purple.
Right. Which I don't know if that's going to be something she loses her hand, or maybe she gets that resolved by the end of the first season.
And I do like, and since we just saw the last episode, I do appreciate where Rayla's not as scared of the water anymore, because she knows it's ice. She knows the lake's ice, but she's willing to go out and help and save Ezran, and she actually does end up saving Ezran with her sword and cuts the hole out.
Yep.
I thought it was that one little thing. I was like, she's overcoming her fears.
Overcoming her fears. Yeah, and I do like how again, I just wish it wasn't as hand fed, I guess you could say, at the beginning of it's about the trust, because at the end of the episode she says it's gonna save my hand if he dies. So she ends up saving him. So it's like, hey, look, you can trust me, even though this is something that is happening to me. Like, I'm willing to make it so Ezran doesn't die, right?
Yeah, it felt kind of forced. I didn't like it personally.
I didn't like. I will say I didn't love how they were like. There was this big pause, and they just kind of sat there and waited for him to, because he jumps into the water to save the egg, and they kind of sat there and waited for him for literally like I felt like about 15 seconds, and then she's like, "Well, my hand's still here, and the wristband's still here, so that means he's not dead. So let me go look for him." And then she finds him. I didn't love that. To be honest, but it wasn't horrible. I thought it could be done differently, but I understand what they were going for.
I did like it in the sense of turning a negative thing into a positive with it, because like the wristband's obviously a negative thing. She's explained why, but she used it as a positive to tell whether Ezra was alive or not. I actually did like it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, and one thing I just didn't appreciate was the forced, and we just talked about it, but the forced trust that Callum needed Rayla for the egg. It's like, oh, now we're in danger. I do trust it. No, like that's like it felt very, very forced.
It goes back to, I think it just goes back to
what plot convenience is what
a little bit of plot convenience, a little bit of forced writing. It is 9 episodes, so they probably want to get through a couple things. But I just wish the trust thing was maybe more of a 3 to 4 episode arc, not a 15-minute arc. If the trust stuff started happening, if it was like, hey, we're going on this adventure together, but we don't trust you still.
Yeah.
So then by the end of the 6th episode, going into the finale, a couple episodes left, we're like, okay, now we're starting to gain trust with this girl. For instance, if she was like, and even if she didn't necessarily 100% trust them, like I made a comment, I think episode 3 or 4, where they go and have to get the artifact, and she goes in there, and it's like, well, why did she go in there alone?
There's 3.
Maybe it's probably episode 3, and it's like, well, why did she go in there alone into the lodge when they could just go in there? They could have been a conversation where it's like, I'm going in there, and it's like, whoa, like we don't trust you. Could go in there, grab it, and just leave. Like, you could just leave us out here to die. And she's like, well, and it's like, look, we're going in there. It's like, well, yeah, but you go in there. Like, there could have been, like, just, I wish there was a little bit more in the few episodes leading into this episode, a little bit more of the trust issue stuff.
Right.
So it didn't seem so out of place. That's all.
And I will say to like end the reaction, because like this, it kind of ends here, where Rayla believes that Ezran can get the egg in the water, and Callum's like, no, we need to help him. I'm like, Rayla, first of all, why would you trust like an 8-year-old kid to jump in the water, retrieve an egg? Like, I'm on Team Callum here. You gotta help him get out. Like,
well, you could make an argument she is still afraid of the water. Like, she has her fear, but she's like, I ain't diving in there.
Do you think that's what was going on through her head, or do you? I personally believed she believed that he could do it.
Yeah, maybe because it was her stopping Caleb from jumping in. So yeah, again, it's
plot convenience.
It's plot convenience. It's her saying that so she can say, "Oh, I'm using my wrist thing. Trust me now." And then they find, like, I get it. Like, that's why I thought that was not done as well as it could have been. And to be and we are kind of at the end of this. I mean, they saved the egg. The egg's now beating differently. Most likely going to hatch at this point.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's dying and they have to save it and then it hatches. Yeah. I do know it hatches because I've just seen pictures of Dragon Prince. I mean, like, I just seen Prince. I type in Dragon Prince and there's a dragon with them. It's like, oh, it's probably gonna hatch. Sorry, I have to do the thumbnails. I don't know what to tell you. But
no, I mean, I don't know. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like Ezran's what, 7, 8?
Yeah.
So, 7, 8-year-olds, especially ones that really like to show what they're made of, right? It's like the stereotypical, like, I can swim, Dad, and then they jump in and they can't swim.
Right.
Like, I'm sure Ezran can swim, but it's one of those things to where, like, do you really believe a 7, 8-year-old can go dive in and swim deep down and retrieve that egg? I don't think so. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just
it was just very much the convenience of
yeah.
I get that.
It was good. Overall, good episode. It's just there were certain things that just didn't flow for me.
Yeah, I think this episode was probably the messiest, and I don't know if that's because they put most of their attention towards the kingdom, and so they just kind of, again, it kind of just felt like, I hate to say filler, but it almost felt like the writers needed this to be done when it comes to the kingdom stuff, but they also wanted to do something with the kids.
I wouldn't say it was a filler. I wouldn't
And,
describe it as that, but
yeah, that's why I'm saying it's not filler. But I think I said this in episode 3 or 2, where I was like, the episode was solid, and it did what it needed to do. There was a couple things they needed to do in this episode, especially about the trust stuff. But it didn't further too much in the sense of like the plot itself. It was more about, because again, this is the trust thing is something we learned at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
So if you just skip the entire thing with the kids and you just learned only about the kingdom, it would be like the next step. Like this episode would start off if you just, we only had the kingdom part and there was nothing about the kids. And so the last time we're going into episode 7, and the last time we saw the kids, they just got saved from, they just saved the bait. And they were like, all right, cool. And all of a sudden now the egg's starting to glow. And they're like, oh, what's happening? We don't really need to know everything because they introduced the idea of them not trusting her in this episode. And they resolved it at the end of the episode. Where if they introduced it in episode 3 or 4 and there was a buildup, then cool. Now we've resolved this thing that we've been talking about for the last 3 episodes, which is we're on this mission together, but we don't still 1,000% trust you.
Right.
That's my biggest setback with their story. Everything with the kingdom, I think was done. I mean, obviously there was some writing stuff. Everything with the kingdom though was done really well, though, in my opinion. Especially when it comes to Claudia and Surin both having those side missions, and now they have these little side missions. They even had a conversation where it was like they both kind of knew that their father said something wild. They were like, and they looked at each other and they were like, well, let's go. Like the dad didn't say anything weird, and they both didn't want to say it. They were both like,
no. So I actually wanted to end it with that, actually, because it was just a blooper. It was a blooper in the episode. It was just like, oh, Claudia, did Dad mention anything funny to you? And it's like, yeah, he actually did. And then what did he say to you? He's like, oh, nothing. He's like, why ask the question?
Yeah, it was like, oh, like berries. Like he said, nuts and berries. Again, I thought it's like this show has been doing this a couple times, and I think overall the writing's been okay, but a few times they have done this in the sense of great concepts for a scene, but then the writing has been off. Like that could have been a really interesting scene where both characters had this like dramatic conversation of like, Dad told me to kill them, and they didn't say that to each other, but like they both kind of know, like Dad said something weird, and they're almost trying to get the other person to tell them like Dad told me something crazy, but there's this tension conversation between the two, and neither of them actually say what happened, and they walk away, and that's what the scene was trying to do. But it just failed at it.
Yep.
And again, I don't know if that's going to be long term with this show. It seems as though from the people commenting and talking to us that it's very much a season 1 thing, and it gets better. I think things like the art has gotten way better and looks a lot better. So I'm hoping some of those writing
styles
/ just, I don't know, hiccups, I would say, because again, I don't think it's I don't think it's all in all. I think it's just there's a couple scenes here and there, like maybe 2 scenes per episode that I feel as though they almost try to throw humor in there. Like she was like, oh, they brought up nuts, aren't berries. And it's like, I don't know if they were going for like, they were trying to make us laugh because that wasn't funny. The seesaw scene I mentioned before, the infinite seesaw scene, it's like, that was a tense, good scene, and it could have been done really well. But then they threw that in there, and it was like, I don't know if you're trying to get like, I don't know if the writers are just trying to get a 9-year-old to like laugh and giggle, but like for an older audience, it doesn't work. And again, going back to Avatar, it's like if there's this Avatar did such a great job at making those work. Like when there's a intense scene between Zhao and Zuko, and then Iroh at the end is like, "Thanks for the tea," it's like it always seemed like it worked, and in this show, it's not working as much. That's all.
Right.
All right. Well, my dog's telling me it's time because right now he's staring at me.
Okay.
So I probably have to feed him. Oh yeah, it's daylight savings. He doesn't know it's daylight savings. So,
Yep.
So yeah. So overall, I think the episode is probably one of the weaker ones. I enjoyed it still. I'm enjoying this series still. I just think there's a couple hit or miss scenes in this, and I just wish it was done a little bit different with the kids' side. That's all.
Right.
But
all
right, guys.
Well, comment below, please subscribe, tell your family, tell your neighbors. We are the Cabbage Crew. We just do reactions and Avatar content.
Yeah,
because we are the Cabbage Crew.
Cabbage Crew. And by the way, commenting wise, because we love you guys commenting, just comment below if we are on the right page. Hear him? If we are on the right page, on the right track when it comes to the wristbands. Like, is there more to that we haven't gotten there yet? Is that just it? It's just a ritual and that's it. Intrigued by that. Don't spoil anything, please. But yeah, definitely interested in that.
Yep. Thanks, Cabbage Crew.